right, so thanks for joining us. This is Ed Modzell. I'm with Gimme Shelter Equity, and I'm joined tonight with by Dave Morja, like Georgia, and Travis Eggenberg. We're all both from New York City. Actually, all three of us are from New York, and we have probably the best property that I've gotten involved in, and this would be my 25th syndication. Dave and Travis have been looking in Orlando for quite some time now, and we put a bid in on a previous property. Unfortunately, we didn't get that one, but we got this one, and we're happy to share it with you tonight. And so let's see. Let's get right into the slide deck here.
So, yeah, I guess I'll kick it off just to start the presentation today. Of course, a couple nice pictures of the property, but really just to start, I guess, the whole thesis and background of what me, Travis, and Ed have been trying to do in this Orlando market is pretty much come in with the thesis that we're gonna take some low risk investments and yield high returns. Asymmetrical investments are pretty much the name of the game for us. We have been targeting Orlando for quite a bit, mainly because we've seen the growth, the incredible growth in this market, and we're going to touch on that later. But really, we just want to make sure that we can return a commensurate return with a lower risk than you would see in other deals in the market. And we think we've brought that today. So just kind of the 5 pillars we have here, just to highlight how we kind of went through this process. We tested this deal, pretty much put it through all of the wickets, made sure that the leverage looked good on the deal, made sure that the forecasting on the expenses and the income look good, pretty much making sure that all of our downsides are mitigated and that the business plan is going to work in multiple scenarios. With that, the risks, like we talked about, we think we captured a great property in a really good market here, which eliminates a lot of that risk, eliminates a lot of the stressors on the income and the growth of the property. And like I mentioned, lower leverage, point number 3. We put some really good debt on this property, and on the refinance, which we'll speak on later, we did an even better job of forecasting a conservative leverage point to return investor capital, but also make sure that we have the property leverage to create great returns. Through this process was myself, Travis, Ed, and we'll talk about our partners at REM Capital as well, but they are also on the deal for this, and they are a vertically integrated company that we're working with to get this done, partners on the deal. Really excited to be working with them on our first deal together. Should be a good one. And yeah, of course, I mentioned the conservative underwriting. If you're claiming to have done a deal, underwrite a deal, operate a deal, and you're not claiming conservative underwriting these days, I would reckon you're probably in the wrong ballgame. So easy disclaimer there. And then the investment disclaimer, of course, is nothing anyone cares to read, at least while we're talking through the deal. Read it at your own leisure to take your time there. Into the table of contents, what we will go over tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Executive summary, we're already kind of getting into highlighting the deal, going over the overall property. Business plan, we'll talk about the rents and what we plan to do with the property. We'll kick it back, get into the market and location, what we love about Orlando and the submarket that we're in Millennia. Property details, we'll go over the unit mixes, floor plans, how we plan to upgrade the interiors on the property. And last but not least, we'll get into financials, why this investment today makes sense. Some more fun pictures here. And I think I would love to kick it to Travis to kind of give some background on this deal, how we found it, why we like it, and really what got us to today.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you, Dave. I am Travis Eggenberg of David and Travis Capital Group. So just quick background on the story. We found this was actually an on-market deal, which is hard to pencil out an on-market deal. One distinct edge that we had in this deal is that Dave actually interviewed the seller a number of months ago. So we already had that relationship. So that yielded a direct line of communication. So when we were negotiating here, that was certainly advantageous for us to have that connection directly to the seller here. So this property in an emerging market, Orlando, there's huge growth opportunity, and it is so much more than hospitality. There is a lot of blue collar jobs and a ton of tech companies coming into Orlando. So we really like the growth of jobs here. This particular property, great path of progress. The surrounding area, we think, over the next 5 years will continue to really transform and draw in a higher quality of tenant. There's a lot of Class A developments going on in the area, a lot of great properties already in the area. So we are really in great position to benefit from overall improvement here. This is a 100% value add opportunity here, meaning that every single interior is currently classic, which means while it's a beautiful property, 2008 build, finished in 2009, while the bones are there, the interiors are very dated, which gives us an amazing opportunity to go in there, make the units a lot nicer, and be able to push our rents commensurate with those nicer units. And our seller here, they got into the deal with 3 years of interest only, and their debt was due, and it just simply made more sense for them to sell this property than to invest the capital, which is what we're going to do here. And we bought this thing really right. We know a lot of comps in the area. We really keep track of this market, and our going in price here of about 220 a door, we found to be really, really exceptional in-place purchase here, and it is well below replacement costs. You can't build this today if you wanted to. We're in that like kind of a B plus asset, and you can't build a B plus asset today, and price of labor and price of materials are so much higher that replacement cost is extraordinary. So that's another aspect that we really love about this deal, and we've got a ton of upside. As mentioned before, 100% value add opportunity, and we see ourselves having a range of $300 to $600 per month of increase per unit here. So we're very excited about that. And let's kind of send it back to you, Dave, for the next slide here.
Yeah, there's a couple points to slow down on this slide. I just wanted to expand on. Thanks, Travis. Just because, I don't know, it gets me kind of interested to pick apart a deal, and there's math to a deal, but there's also like a story. And the first point, your motivated seller, like you mentioned, Travis, not only do they have the IO period, but to me, what's important to know is how the operator that's selling you the deal got into it and why they're getting out of it. It's obviously one of the first questions you ask, why are you selling, right? But these guys, like Travis mentioned, we knew, but more importantly, they were selling because they already got an amazing cost basis on this deal. They had bought this deal from Starwood Properties, who had in turn bought this from a condo developer player in 2008, who obviously we don't have to expand on 2008, was not able to actually finish the condo play. So Starwood came in, bought that for super cheap. And then Bayshore Investment Partners, the seller, bought it from Starwood for also super cheap. So everyone has had healthy margins on this deal, which means it's now our turn to get healthy margins on this one. Bayshore came in, they did a great job on the property, but property management is not really their forte, which we'll kind of expand on further. We have a lot more room to grow here. So we're very comfortable with the story behind this one. And then to go on to the kind of price point and where we ended up landing on the deal, just a couple market comps real quick before we get into it later. But one of the deals that is being touted around right now, it's a little bit nicer for a property than ours, but it's $100K more a door. It's right in our neck of the woods. And yes, it is a different finish than ours currently, but we have an 08 build. It's a condo build. And we definitely think we can close the gap, even just a hair, which will obviously be a great thing for the property. And then similarly, there is a huge portfolio right around the area too, 1,600 plus units that's getting positioned to sell right now. And we are obviously eyeing that one very closely to see what happens there, because we think it means good news for us as well. But yeah, I'm going to continue on to the next slide here. We'll get into kind of the financing of the deal, what happened after we decided to take this one under contract. So financing was set up with 75% loan to value, 6.3% interest rate, and there is a cap on that. This is bridge debt. We do have the cap rate already allocated for in our capital stack, so we are clear to go on that one. We are not going to be worrying about funds to make sure that we get that in place. The bridge lender is obviously requesting that anyways. And some of you might be asking, especially given the last week or so with interest rates and everything that's going on, is that interest rate still true? Unfortunately, this is not our current interest rate as of the printing of this OM. That's the unfortunate part. The great part is it's actually 6.35. So we were able to project this out pretty darn well through this whole process, through the kind of fall interest rate scenario that we're in. We were kind of eyeing the Fed, seeing this October date getting touted around. So we baked that in. We put that 75 basis point bump already into our debt underwriting. So the rate we have locked in is 6.35 for this deal. So it barely flinched compared to what you see on this sheet. And it's a typical bridge deal. We're going to get 2 months with 3 1-year extension periods. And then we're going to be able to refinance after 18 months, which is probably right around the time where if we, perform everything correctly, we're going to be starting to eye the refinance, and then interest only for the life of the deal. So all 2 years plus the extensions on each leg of the deal. If we choose to take them, we'll have interest only. So we'll be able to cash flow pretty positively throughout this whole deal once we get it stabilized. Assumptions on the back end. So I mentioned conservative underwriting. What does that mean for everyone involved? 10 basis point increase per year in cap rate expansion is what we have slated for this deal. We don't want to assume that although we are improving the property, we don't want to assume that we're going to be selling this thing at a lower or equal cap rate than what we bought it at. So penciling out as a 5.5 cap, we're going to sell this thing as a 6, as you can see on the third bullet point here. And we feel really good about that. I think Ed and Travis and the rest of the team, we've walked this thing, we've seen the area, we know kind of where we land on this deal. We would be shocked if this thing traded above where we have it underwritten, just because not only are we going to improve this property and completely just make just so many improvements that it's not going to really end up being the same property anymore. It's also just an area that I don't think is going to really trend negatively for this foreseeable future. And we'll get into the Orlando market and the sub market here in a little bit. But we feel very comfortable at that 6 cap rate that we are going to easily come lower than that, which is a huge win on the deal, of course. Going into, I guess, the transitory period of the deal, the stabilization period, we are making sure that we have some economics, and I'll get into this in the underwriting once we get to that slide at the end, but we are going to make sure that we have a loss factor in year 1 as we actually improve the property. We expect, some level of turbidity when we take this property over. There are going to be some people that stay. There are going to be some people that leave. We make sure we bake that into the underwriting to make sure that our economic occupancy reflects all the things that we need to do to be safe throughout the deal. So all the cash flow should be pretty positively and pretty conservatively measured at this point. I mentioned the safe refi in the earlier slides. This is right now as it stands, and this is a pretty impressive stat that I sleep at night because I stress about these deals. We are planning a refi at 65% loan to value, and we stress tested this deal to be able to only refinance at 52% loan to value, which in pretty much any market, especially a deal like this, is very, very conservative. I mean, that would be a deal where you're in a really hairy deal, and this is not one. And even to boot, it's going to be at a 9% interest rate is at which we stress tested this thing. So if you were to look at a deal and say, okay, what does year 2, year 3, year 4 look like with a refinance? And am I going to be able to pull this off? And you can pull it off with a 52% loan to value and 9% interest. I would say you're probably going to be able to navigate that successfully. If you are not comfortable with that, I would challenge you, I guess I would say, to find a deal that's going to pencil any differently than that, because this is from what I would say is about as good as it gets for a debt assumption on the exit. So here's some high level stuff on the actual deal. Capital stack, what we plan to do with the money, use of funds, source of funds. So the purchase price, $41 million. We're going to do CapEx renovations of $1.97 million. So that's just about $10K a door. And we'll get into the renovations, but really we have a great property. Like we mentioned, the only thing we're going to need to do is the interiors. We're going to do kitchens and baths. One of them is probably going to be, and I'll get into it, a different style bath than the other. But we're going to do typical kitchen and baths, typical flooring. CapEx is looking fantastic as well. We're going to have essentially a beautiful property, but we do need to improve the clubhouse and a couple other things. And then working capital, not uncommon to a deal like this, which is just interest reserves and prepayment for the loan, and then your typical closing costs. That'll add up to 14.4 million equity and 33 and change in debt. And that's how we'll be funding the deal today. And then this is the investment highlights. Travis, did you want to take over the investment highlights to just kind of cover how we're going to sort out this deal with investors?
For sure. Yep. I'll go through this. So with this specific deal, we are providing a preferred return of 8%. So this is the baseline return of what we have in the deal. This is cumulative, non-compounding. So if in the first year there are no returns and we have the liquidity for the second year, you will have a catch up equal to 16%. So if we hold this deal, let's say for 5 years, and there are no preferred return payments, you will have that baseline of the 8 times 5 with a minimum 40 total percent return there. And we are projecting an equity multiple here of 2%. So effectively within our time frame, we're looking to double money. And we've underwritten this for 5 years. So we're looking within that 5-year time horizon, 2x multiple. And that will give us a projected internal rate of return at about 15 to 17% return. And this is what we love to provide. This is what we love to look for in deals. This is a great, healthy return with a strong preferred return in today's market. So we're extremely excited about this deal. And the minimum investment here is $100,000. Go to this next slide here. And I'll kind of go through the business plan and kind of what we're looking at now, what we're planning to do. So management they've maintained this property very well, but they just have not brought it to the next level, which is what we're going to come in here and do. And there's definitely missing opportunities. So we're going to make everything look a lot nicer and have everything digital. We're really planning to have all payments come in electronically, which is going to make everything a lot smoother. And REM, the lead sponsor here, they're going to upgrade. We're really improving the tenant class here. So by building a nicer product, we're going to draw on a better overall tenant base, and we're going to just make everything a lot nicer. Dave touched on before, the community, the leasing office is not the greatest. We're going to make that really pop, make it look amazing. And our rents right now, below market rent, as we saw before, the rents are probably $500 to $600 below where we could get them. And we're going to go in there, we're going to spend good money per unit and get those rents to where we could get them here. Current condition, everything is 100% classic. There's a few units that have wood flooring that get maybe $70 extra per month. But aside from that simple wood flooring, we're going to be able to turn all these, make it really, really nice. We're planning to do for the bathrooms, one of them we're going to provide a stand-up shower, one of them we're going to keep a bathtub. And as a group, we found that to provide a pretty solid return. Other upgrades we're going to make here are lighting, the vanities in the bathroom tubs, backsplash, and new flooring throughout.
And just to continue on the business plan, we kind of break this down into 2 schools of thoughts, I would say. There is the initial kind of re-tenanting, release up strategy on the property. So obviously, with a value add comes renovations, right? So we talked about the $2 million for unit upgrades will be performed essentially as we have leases come to term. This 18-month period, we expect around 7 to 8 units turned per month, just based on what we have on leasing audits right now, what we see for expiration of leases, and just based on the speed at which we want to accomplish these lease ups. We do want to improve the property as quick as possible, but we also want to do it at a pace at which we're not sacrificing too much cash flow. So that number, as it stands today, is around 7 or 8 units a month that we'll be looking to turn safely, and then getting the property up to a nice cash flow position at that 18-month mark into the kind of 36-month mark. Also, outside of the units, we talked about exterior upgrades. One thing we hadn't mentioned yet was there is a position to kind of improve the welcome setup to the property. We have 2 gates on the property, one of which we would like to extend out so that we have a little bit more parking for people looking to actually go to the leasing office. As it stands right now, there's only a few spots for leasing applicants to be able to park without having to go through a gate, which is a little bit of a process. So we're going to be looking to add some capital to that, which is already allocated for. We're going to be making sure that we have more space to make a more welcoming feeling for anybody looking to sign up to start living at the property, that they feel welcome and it's easy to get in the door and meet with an agent. So that's one of the big things too. Along with this 18-month process, and Travis kind of mentioned it, we are really just looking to actually put in a PM program that actually welcomes and will retain and track potential tenants and future tenants, current tenants. Like I mentioned, Bayshore, the previous owner, had done a great job of the property, but we have the, I guess, fortune to have a vertically integrated company alongside us that's going to be able to help go soup to nuts, completely just leasing up the property at a really efficient pace with a lot of data behind them to help that. On the flip side, 18 to 36 months, that's where we're really going to look to stabilize the property. At that point, we should have a good idea of how the turns are going and will continue to go. We'll just be looking to optimize at that point. We're going to be testing the rents. At that point, a lot of the market will probably bear something different is what we look to see. You'll see in our underwriting in the next slides. All of the underwriting we assumed is for year 3. So all of the market rates are for a year 3 projection. So this 18 to 36 month period is really us trying to tweak our offerings and tweak the market to make sure that we're actually keeping up with the market, but not being too aggressive with our lease up strategy as well. And then, like I mentioned earlier, this is also the time frame where now that we have a stabilized property and a good business plan in place, we're probably going to look to get agency debt, something in the year 3 to 5 range, and the leverage I spoke about. Obviously, like I mentioned in the last slide, we had tested the 59% loan to value and 9% interest rate. That is not what we planned to get on the property. It was just the worst case scenario that we ran. We'll be getting probably a little bit higher leverage than that, and we assume a much lower interest rate than that. And yeah, this is just where we kind of continue to turn the property. And that's really the point where we'll make a decision on how we continue to operate it once we have more data. Rent comp. So this is where it gets pretty interesting, interesting and exciting way. So you can see Esplanades here in bold at the bottom. Market rates for 2.2s run just over $2,100, and market rates for 3.2s run 23.5. What's interesting about this property is, I would say the first thing to highlight is the lack of 3 bedrooms in the submarket. When we walk this property, when we walk the comps, when we shop everything, there is a huge lack of inventory for 3 bedrooms, and it shows with the pricing in the market. Now, with that said, we did not underwrite for a big delta between the 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms. We assumed there was not going to be too much of a spread, but we think we're pretty conservative, and we think we'll be, be able to achieve pretty good things with these 3 bedrooms in the market. When you start to shop them against, single family homes and stuff like that, it becomes a pretty marketable rate that we're offering to tenants at the 2,300 mark. And again, like I mentioned, this is year 3 numbers. So anything you see here is what we're assuming after all of the work is done, after all the value add is done. To bring it back, you can see the current rates are here. We have 1,365 and 1,690 for the 3.2s. Those are actually already outpaced in the market. We had current rates, I think, at around 18 and change for the 2.2s and a little bit higher for the 3.2s. We've been lucky that the previous owner is still continuing to push rents, and I think the T2 was even 8% year over year. So we're in a pretty good position that the current rates are not even current, and the markets are at we were in the previous slide on the second tier there. So we're in a nice spot where we only have a few more $100 before we already outpace projections, which is a great thing to have. And this is where we'll get into the market a little bit. So Travis, do you want to kind of highlight where we are positioned on the property? We're right in central Atlanta here, so I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah. So the macro here of our location is that we are 6 miles to downtown Orlando, very, very close to the Orlando International Airport, really close to nice amenities like SeaWorld and Walt Disney Resort, downtown Disney, really, really nice areas. And then also Universal. So that's kind of like the macro. We're in a really good macro area. But in the micro too, this particular property is situated on 2 avenues of heavy traffic, and we're right on the corner. So we love the organic traffic that we will have simply from volume of cars passing by each day. And again, being situated on that corner is an excellent opportunity for us to get foot traffic without having to do a ton of marketing, which we will do a ton of online marketing anyway. So both the macro and the micro give us amazing, amazing location here. So if you don't know about Orlando, it is growing like crazy. With a median age of 37, we have a lot of room to grow here, and also number 2 best overall state for retirement in Florida, generally speaking. So we've got a good median age and a big runway for people to just grow into Florida. So we love that. And then, as discussed before, the job growth here is excellent. It is so much more than hospitality. There are a ton of great employers coming in here. So this is a recipe for us having a really long-term thesis for this property. So it gives us the optionality, should we want to hold it longer for that 5 years, for that 10 years. There could be the opportunity for us to refi, return all of the money here. So refinance, return all the money, and have an amazing cash flowing property should we choose to have that. So being situated in such a great growing market affords us that ability here. And a great stat is that 1,000 people have been moving to Orlando each week. And that equates to about 50,000 new residents per year, and not enough units to meet that supply.
And that's been going on 50 years. And
years.
here's a good trivia. It was 49 years ago today that I went to Orlando and joined the Navy there. So I saw it come from nothing, like, and now look at it.
Happy anniversary.
But we really like all this equates to us being in a great situation in a restricted supply, and with the huge demand of 3 2s in this area, the 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, I think we're well positioned to increase rent substantially. So we're very, very excited about this opportunity. And as touched on again, replacement cost is extraordinarily expensive here. So we've got an excellent property that will be able to benefit from turning into a great investment. From 2022 to 2060, we are projected to grow in our submarket about 2% annually. That is a massive, massive growth projection. One of the highest out of all 384 metros in the United States. And regarding employment, we are set to grow by 104% by 2060. With this, well, just a projection, this will let you know that from the 53,000 in 2022, we will grow to approximately 310,000 income per capita in 2060. We'll see what happens with inflation. That could be 3 million. So either way, we are well set up to be able to raise rents for as long as we need to here.
That's like a mind-blowing number to me.
You want to kind of take this over, Dave?
Yeah, sure. We're getting kind of into labor stats and some fun stuff like that. What we'll soon uncover here is kind of dispelling the myth of what type of jobs there are in Orange County and Orlando area. Most of you think of Orlando and you think of tourism. Obviously, there is plenty of that, but as you can see on the second bullet here, 62% of jobs are actually white collar in Orange County. We'll get into some more fun facts, but yeah, it's pretty diverse metro area. And one of the things that's even making it more diverse as we go day by day is the kind of virtual work scene, where you're seeing a lot of people who would typically have lived up in maybe the Northeast or something like that, come down to Florida for lower taxes, and maybe they like Orlando specifically for some of the amenities they have there. So yeah, just to go more into these stats, just under 3% unemployment rate, which is obviously under the average national average of 3.6, like to always be outpacing the general market there. And unemployment has remained that way for pretty much 24 months. So through this whole turbid period with COVID, with everything else in the market, like I mentioned, there's a lot of growth into these markets, and the unemployment obviously is a reflection of that. It is number 8 on the metros where pay is rising the fastest. So obviously with jobs coming in, pay is rising as competition becomes greater. Just under 500,000 jobs since the last rolling year in the state of Florida. So 500,000 is pretty significant as far as just new jobs in the market the last year. And then top 20 in the states for business in 2022. Obviously, Florida is a haven for plenty of opportunity, as I'm sure you've seen anecdotally. So into major employers, like I mentioned, obviously the Disney Worlds, obviously the Universal Orlando's, these are big players in the market. but you'll see there's quite the array of different types of industries. We have Advent Health, which is big in healthcare, along with Orlando Health. That makes up for a good population of good paying tenants that pretty much want to be close to their jobs in their markets. So anytime you're within an MSA, you want to make sure you can just fully amenitize those packages. Those people want to stay in Orlando long term. They want to just build where they are, and we like the health industry in general. We also have air transportation, obviously retail, education, aerospace, contract and defense services, and all the government related stuff is actually a pretty big industry in Orlando as well. It is a big one on the East Coast, obviously, with all the space stuff going on the Space Coast, but there's quite a bit of it on the contract and defenses going on in Orlando as well. And then to further kind of highlight the employment, we have more of a breakdown, kind of a visual of where we shake out percentages wise. You can see on the left here, we kind of get into more of the tourism and services and stuff like that, but you can see the big chunk of healthcare. You can see the big chunk for retail. One thing to note, which is kind of interesting, construction at 5%. So we mentioned on one of the earlier slides that there was pretty much only 6 months of supply into construction. You can see there's a lot going on in Orlando, but it's just almost impossible to keep up. So while there's a ton of construction going on, you can see it's only 5%. That's just because there's such an influx of everything else going on that it's kind of a drop in the bucket, really, when you think about it. So yeah, that's why we like Orlando. I think no matter how hard they try to keep up with the pace, it's going to be hard to beat for a little while. So as I mentioned, yeah, a lot more diversity and employment outside of just tourism. So 80% of the employment in total on this graph, if you were to kind of add it up, but easily highlight here in a bullet, 80% of the employment is outside of that Walt Disney, that Universal bubble, which makes me feel a lot better about the market in general, right? You don't want to be too reliant on one industry, and we don't have that here. It certainly helps to have it because it brings in, extra capital, but you don't want to rely on just one. We have 116,000 employed in the healthcare sector. I kind of mentioned that was one of the biggest ones on the previous slide. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of tech workers moving down to Orlando, a lot of remote work that's happening, that's coming in. People like to live where it's warm. It's just kind of what makes sense, especially when you talk about living in a colder environment, living in an environment where maybe your taxes don't go to the things you want them to go to. You can come to Florida, maybe enjoy some tax-free income on the state level, at least get to spend that money elsewhere. There's a lot of things at play that would maybe entice, obviously, many people, 40,000 plus coming into Orlando. And like I say, business is booming, manufacturing is thriving. Still, though, it's crazy that it's trying its best to keep up, and it's just getting bigger and bigger every day. So it's really impressive. Orlando tourism. So yeah, it goes without saying that this is a big haven for tourism, probably the tourist capital of the world. I promised Travis and Ed I would take them out after we close this deal. We're going to take them to Disney World and I get them a Mickey bar or something. But yeah, it's a good time out there. If you haven't been, it's obviously an allure to many. It brings in a lot of income on the tourism side, obviously. And that just gets pumped back into the state, it gets pumped back into the market. So we like this as a big driver for the market for sure. So here is some area stats, and you can see kind of the two highways that Travis had mentioned. We have these two here, and then this is actually I-4, which is the major interstate, and then it intersects with Florida's Turnpike right here, this big X basically just left of the mile marker. We're at a good position within the market. We're at a good position, pretty central in Orlando, and right off a lot of major arteries, which is obviously a big draw for tenants. They want to be able to access their local areas quickly. They also want to be able to access the greater area quickly. So getting onto the highway, getting out and about is a big thing for everyone. What we mentioned, path to progress, we are in a very good submarket. So average home value, $258,000. That is just incredible to me to see in Florida. That's some numbers that you would see maybe in some nicer areas in New York or something like that. Obviously not the city proper, but some nice areas in New York. So to see that in a place like Florida is just great to me, especially at the 1, 3, and 5 mile mark. 38% home ownership. And this again is a great number to see. We like to see a healthy amount without a too big of amount. If you see a large number in home ownership, that is an indicator to me that maybe you have too good of options as far as renting versus owning a home. So we like to see, a healthy amount there, that you are going to see a strong surge of renters in the near future. So we like that number a lot. Average area rent is right in line with our comps. This actually includes some comps that would probably be way below our comps. So we are going to be able to obviously exceed these 80s, 70s products with our 2008 build. So we're pretty excited for that one as well. And then getting into the demographics, kind of like the 5 mile overview. I'm not going to go over this whole slide. This is kind of just some infographic stuff to chew on. Some interesting things to highlight. Again, here's the white collar employment at 56%. Really impressive to see that in a market where you would, typically associate Disney and kind of front service kind of work and stuff like that. So it's nice to see that. The median age, like we highlighted, is 35. We like to see a young demographic generally in the area. Median age of 35 to me means small families, which is what we have in line for this property. We have only 2 bedrooms and only 3 bedrooms. So to see essentially a market where there's going to be families starting to grow and to plant the roots is what we like to see. Then we'll continue now into the property details. This is where we're just going to kind of pick apart more highlights of the deal, and just to kind of give you a feel of what the actual property looks like. Myself, Travis, and Ed have obviously walked this multiple times at this point, but it's not a story without kind of visuals. So we'll just kind of take and break it down what we have on the property, so you can get an idea for what we're going to be offering to tenants here in the future. So like we mentioned, amenities for the property are pretty much just as good as you could get. We have all the amenities that anyone in the nearby areas for comps need. Gated community, which is just a real nice touch that tenants seem to appreciate. We have a swimming pool that we talked about needing to fix up, a fitness center that we're going to bring up to speed, clubhouse, the whole 9 yards. So we're going to be bringing all this up to speed and making it super, super nice for the tenants to essentially, from start to finish, from lease up to living, they're going to feel just at home. And that's what we're looking to do with these 2-2s and 3-2s, just make a nice home feeling for these small families. Construction is not unlike anything else you see in the market. We got pitched roofs. They're in pretty good condition. Nothing that we need to worry about during our ownership. Definitely a way down the line thing. It's only an 08 build. And we're going to have, essentially in line with comps. We just have all the other construction details, which aren't anything that we need to worry about there. Apartment amenities, like we mentioned, we are going to be doing some improvements on the property, but we do have in-unit washer and dryer, which is a huge plus for something like this. We like to be able to offer that to tenants. Is it an opportunity where on other properties where there isn't an in-unit washer and dryer, you're able to charge coinage for the washer and dryer use in the common areas? Yes, but you can instead within the unit just bake this right into the amenitized package. Usually getting about $50 a unit just for having the washer and dryer in the unit, because it's such a convenience to have that. And as you can see, a lot of other amenities on the property will be upgrading the security system to make sure everybody feels safe and doing all sorts of things like that. And we have some pictures of the units just to give you a feel for what we have for a property here. Like we mentioned, we'll be doing some flooring upgrades. We'll be doing some cabinet upgrades. But you can see that we have a really nice property with really nice bones, great natural lighting throughout. We'll be improving the actual lighting within, but we already have the bonus of nice lighting throughout the property. And you can see our unit mixes here. So like I keep harping on is these 3-2s, right? We have about a third of the property is 3-2s. And I think that's really the pressure point that we can really squeeze to improve the property even more than we projected. So we're looking forward to be able to do that there. Even with properties with 3-2s, oftentimes you only have maybe 10-15% or so, but we have around 30%, which is due to the fact that it was kind of a condo development back in the day, right? So we're able to take advantage of that today, which is a great bonus.
Nice square footage too.
Yeah, huge square footage. I think it's back to that condo play, right, Ed? I mean, you wouldn't have built that for this type of property if it wasn't for people that were going to end up owning the units. So the fact that we were able to capture that is a huge win.
Hey, Dave, what is the distinction between those first 2 unit mixes? That was just 2 different floor plans?
Are you talking right here, these 2? The top
yeah.
2? Yeah, so it's these are the partial renos on the property right now. And I think it's 26 that have had the flooring done,
The wood floor.
and
Yeah.
13 that have had the flooring done in the 3-2. So there's only 2 floor plan footprints for the property. If we go back, you can see this is a very symmetrical property, if you will. All the buildings are very similar in kinds. I think, again, it was just easy for construction. So yeah, we have 2 very simple floor plans, very easy to digest for tenants coming into the property. I think it's really nice to be able to make it simple and straightforward. And here's the floor plans. Nothing really to expand on here, just to give you an idea. One thing we mentioned or failed to mention so far, I kind of highlighted it briefly. One of the things we're going to do is a value add on this one for the kitchens and more specifically the bathrooms. One of these bathrooms on each unit type is going to end up with a shower only tub instead of a tub. So one will have the tub and one will have the standing shower, which we have seen in the market, whether it be Orlando or elsewhere, is a huge kind of value add. I think a lot of people are starting to like not having the tub step in, especially when you have the tub option in a 2 bathroom. So the fact that we have all 2 bathrooms means we're going to go for it and add those showers in, which I think really helps pretty up a bathroom in general and helps sell the place even more. And it's obviously something the tenants enjoy. All right, so now the nitty gritty. We're going to get into the financials. And just before I get there, you can see this is the common area. This is the welcome center. I mean, it's nice and cleaned up, but it definitely could use some upgrading into this decade a little bit. I think those yellows and browns are a little bit tired. I think we could definitely open it up a little bit more. And you can't even see it on this slide, but these are huge ceilings. I forget how tall it was, Travis or Ed, if you remember how tall the vaulted ceiling was, but very tall open space, definitely a welcoming feel here, especially once we add some nice amenities to this area to pop it. Finances. All right, so let's get into the numbers here. We mentioned the high level. So per unit, we're going to be putting in 10.5 a door. So what does that get you for the money? Obviously, we're looking to improve units without spending too much. We want to make sure that we're being economical about every dollar we spend. We're always looking to get, usually at least a 3-year return on any capital expenditure dollars. So all $10,000 we plan to capture within 3 years essentially is usually the napkin math here. And this one, we blew it right out of the water. So for the 10.5K per unit, we're going to be replacing flooring, like we mentioned, the kitchen and bath, and really just more lighting throughout the area. We don't have anything complicated to do. These units are in great shape. They have been well maintained. They are a premier product in general. So we just need to do some brightening of the units, bringing them into this decade to make sure that the tenants actually have a product they want to move into. And just at the bottom here, we mentioned these 39 in total that already have the partial flooring. That's just kind of a separation of the cheaper version of flooring that we have to do, since we've saved a couple bucks on those already. So CapEx on the common areas and exteriors. We'll be doing some light landscaping. You can see in maybe the top right picture here, we have a little bit of landscaping to do, especially when we talk about this little fountain area, which we also have kind of decided that needs to be brightened up and fixed. Actually, we walked the property. The fountain isn't even functioning today. So this area is a big one for us. We like to have the process and the whole flow of a potential tenant welcomed into the property to be smooth. So this whole area definitely needs some brightening up. The fountain definitely needs to work. And this is where the gates are that I mentioned are going to be fixed so that we have a little bit more parking for anybody looking to potentially start renting here. You can see in the background there's maybe 4 or 5 cars and a golf cart for the property manager or the maintenance guy. We want to expand on that quite a bit. So.
Hey, Dave, just to expand on something, you take that $10,000
Yep.
and you divide it by, let's say, $500 rent bump, because we're looking to get $400 to $600 on renovated units.
Yep.
That's a payback of 20 months. That's less than 2 years. That equates to like a 60% return on investment. which is phenomenal. And you mentioned a payback in 3 years. A lot of people are striving for a payback in 4 years. So this is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think thanks for calling me out on that. I personally only will look at doing CapEx dollars if it's under 3 years, just because mostly that's usually when you're looking at kind of a refi or sale. So why would you even plan for getting your money back after that point? Yeah, some people do 4, and this deal obviously under 2 is just a home run. So thanks for quoting the number. I obviously was stalling on that one, but yeah, 20 months is just insane. Pretty good stuff. It's nice to know that every dollar you're throwing at this thing is going to churn and turn pretty quickly back into your pocket. So yeah, just continuing on, I guess, with the CapEx, we had mentioned all this stuff before. I don't think there's anything extra that I had mentioned other than maybe just this one point here. And maybe I'm highlighting this just because it's my background, but we are employing $65,000 of capital to the HVAC. What we like to do there is we like to start fresh. So we have great HVAC units throughout the property, nothing that was a red flag that we are worried about, but we want to start the preventive maintenance plans on the right foot. We want to get a good assessment of what we're going to need to do in the future. So this 65K is going to be allotted to make sure that we kind of start on the right path, get kicked off on a good rotation of preventative maintenance for the property for one of the areas that could really kind of start nickeling and diming you. So while we can capitalize with good debt, we're going to make sure we tackle that today. And we mentioned pretty much everything here just to make sure that it feels bright and safe. The LED lighting and the camera system is going to be a big thing to make sure that these families, like we're looking to rent to, feel like they're at home. So that's going to be a big thing for us.
Dave, one thing to touch on here too, if we just go above to that, is the backyard fences. I think that's going to be a really nice touch to this property. We plan on creating backyards for a number of the properties right behind the pool. So when you have your unit on the first ground, you'll have your own private backyard. And for that $15,000 investment to create a number of those backyards, we are going to see an incredible return on investment there. So I think that's one point definitely worth highlighting.
Yeah, again, it goes back to that kind of family feel. I think like we have so many of these 3-2s. It's only going to make sense to make it so that people want to stay, and maybe they even start in a 2-2 and they have that second or third kid and they want to move into 3-2. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about here. We just want to make a cohesive environment for people to feel like they're home, which is what it is. Okay, so more numbers. This is the nitty gritty. I will try to be brief without going in too deep, but also summarize everything a little bit succinctly here. So you can see years 1 through 5 here. Stabilized. All of these numbers really shouldn't surprise you. We're looking at 3% vacant, 2% on lost lease, 1% of collections, and then some, kind of other income to go along with the effective rents. And we're looking at 5.5 mil as our 5-year projection. Again, that is not where we are going to be projecting the first event. That's going to be around year 3. And if we backtrack to year 3, we can see we're actually kind of phasing into those assumptions on year 5. And we're going to go back even further and see it in year 1. But on year 3, we'll see just north of 5 million on total revenue, which is a great spot to be considering, we're in the 3s right now. To highlight that phase in, I had mentioned it, but anytime you take over a property, you're going to assume some level of turbidity and turbulency when taking over the property, re-tenanting, doing improvements. Sometimes there's just going to be some situations where the business plan doesn't go to plan. So we want to bake that in ahead of time so it actually does go to plan, if that makes any sense. So vacancy, loss to lease, those are all going to be amped up in year 1 and then phased out in year 2 and then completely phased out in year 3. So we have very healthy economic losses, like we mentioned earlier, 16% for year 1. We understand there's going to be some action on the property, just getting it up to speed, a lot of value add here. So we want to make sure we account for that. So we're going to be coming in way over projections when we're talking about the performance of the property through the value add. Continuing on, so we did the high level revenue. What do expenses look like for this property? Considering this is just a beautiful asset, a beautiful product, not only is this in a good area at scale, 186 units, we have a good product with good bones. We don't foresee too many things from our due diligence that are going to come up on this thing. And as a result, we were able to put a pretty good plan together for the expenses on this one. So just keeping a high level, we got about 1.5 in year one, and that'll phase out to 1.8 in year five. And then you can see our NOIs on the bottom going from all the way. And this is crazy. I mean, I don't know how much you guys have looked at this number, Travis and Ed, but I keep looking at this and just seeing the improvement from 2.2 to 3.7 in 5 years. It's like 60%. It's like crazy. It blows my mind to do an NOI shift that heavily. But we just have a good one here. So it's pretty good stuff. This is ROI. So I think I'll kick it to Travis for this one since he covered the kind of investment returns on that. So Travis, you want to take this one?
Yep, 100%. So we always like this table. Really simple. Lets us know what our return looks like based on the minimum investment here. So we like to use a nice round number, 100,000. So we have that year 3. That's going to be our first capital event. So we plan to have a refinance there. So we have some cash on cash coming year 1, a little bit more year 2, and then we have a touch more year 3, and then we have that nice capital event of the refinance. We're going to try to refinance as much as possible in that year 3. And then moving forward, you'll notice a huge gap up on the cash on cash returns. That's because we projected back a substantial return, something along the lines of $70,000 of that money coming back to you. And now you have the investment where you're still achieving that same return, but with less risk. That is always our thesis when it comes to real estate. You risk as little as you can to achieve as much as you possibly can, with an emphasis on minimizing risk. So you see that your cash on cash in the year 4 and 5 is based on a lower risk threshold. So we love a deal like that. And when you could invest $100,000 and get back $184,000 in year 5, that is a deal that we love, especially in today's market where it is so hard to find yield. So that's kind of the quick breakdown of what $100,000 looks like invested in this vehicle. Any other additional points to add into there, Dave?
Well, yeah, I guess going back to like risk reward, I would say like maybe you find a deal with these returns, like they're out there, right? But even if it's actually properly underwritten, it's still giving these returns. There's not many that I've at least seen anecdotally through the ones that I see, through my inbox every day. That is kind of de-risked like this one, in my opinion. We are in a very strong market here in Orlando, in a very strong property, bringing together a very strong team. I personally am always looking for these level of returns, but I don't just blindly look for those returns and disregard the risk. I look to make sure that the risk is as mitigated as possible. And I think this one probably beats the crowd 9 times out of 10. So yeah, pretty good stuff. Pro forma assumptions. This one I will kind of briefly go over. It just goes more into the slide I did earlier on the tables. I mentioned the economic losses on the property, talking about the phase in of losses to leases and vacancy and collection losses. Expenses are pretty cut and dry. We got, payroll in place, and just really the only things that are kind of note on this property, and you'll see it, is that the insurance is a little bit higher in Florida than probably everywhere else in the US, or most places in the US. I don't think I have to explain really why, but I will. It's just the weather. Obviously, we can see a little bit of the occurrence of that right now. But yeah, insurance, we have already baked in the high premiums. They still fit the model properly, so we're not worried there. And then the other one, just to highlight, which is really just not abnormal, but just something to highlight because it's not something that is kind of just boring and now we're talking about, but is the taxes. We had baked in a pretty substantial tax hike in our underwriting to make sure that if and when we do get reassessed, that we're going to be assessed properly and that we have underwritten it properly. So obviously we're going to do our best to bat all tax appraisals the whole way through the deal and make sure that we're taking care of our taxes properly. But we have baked in pretty much the worst case scenario throughout this process too. FAQs are in the side here, just what a pref is. Can you invest in IRA, 1031 funds? So all these things are pretty much yeses. We are going to be taking IRA money. You can find out details by contacting one of your sponsors. We are going to be taking 1031s as well. And the one that probably we should expand on a little bit is, are we doing a cost segregation study? The answer is yes. So this deal is closing, obviously, the end of October. There will be more deals towards the end of the year, but this is probably the time to start looking at harvesting tax losses for your 2022 year. So we will be doing a cost seg study. We expect, upwards of a 70% tax loss for 2022. So if you have some proceeds from a prior deal and you want to make sure you're mitigating your taxes for the year, this is definitely a good opportunity to do so as well. I think I've really covered it. So I guess if we want to kind of kick it out into timeline, Travis or Ed, feel free.
All right, Ed, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So we're really just launching this now, but it's going to be a bit of a short timeline. We have a big raise, but that's why we brought on a very good partner to help with that. It's a $15 million raise, and we do plan on closing on October 25th. So, you say, well, how much time do I have to get involved in the deal? Well, I could say safely you probably got another week or two, but basically it's first come, first serve, and I don't have any doubt that we're going to fill the raise. And so the next thing to do would be to reach out to your team member and make sure you have access to the investment portal. One thing I would like to point out, and this is the first deal that I've done like this, and it is our intent, distributions are not guaranteed. Okay, it really depends on the market, but our intent is to give out distributions monthly, and the first distribution is going to be after the first full month. So what does that mean? Okay, if we close on October 25th, the first full month would be November. So that would be somewhere as mid-December. I know that's the first distribution. And I know that's people want to know that. When am I going to get paid, right? So that's something that I'm pretty excited about. And right now, let's see. Well, we're going to send out a recording of this. We're going to send out the slide deck so everybody has it. Please reach out to your friendly face here on this panel, and you could, I'm sure you know how to get in touch with your respective sponsor. And do we have any questions out there? Well, we have a small group here.
In the chat, which
and one of the reasons we have a small group, I believe, is we may have had trouble with people signing in. But we will make sure that we get this recording out to everybody out there. I think that kind of wraps it up. Anybody, did I forget anything there, Dave? Travis?
You nailed it, Ed. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Travis.
All right. Like I said, I'm very excited about this. I mean, look at that property. And we're also going to give it a fresh paint job to even spruce it up even a little more. And I think I want to move down to the property, actually, maybe after this hurricane passes through. I don't know.
We'll see if you pass the tenant check first,
Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming on, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Good night.